Hey Trekkies, it's summer, and you know what that means. It's time for Creation Entertainment's Trek to Las Vegas 2025. This year, the convention has been expanded to a 5-day schedule, August 6th through the 10th at the Rio Las Vegas Hotel. Meet all your favorite Star Trek pros in one place, and hey, maybe you swing by Vic's Lounge and you see our panel. It's a great way to meet people in person and have some fun with your fellow Trekkies. If you can't make it to Star Trek Las Vegas, of course, there's also other events around the country this year. Trek to Orlando, August 23rd through 24th. There's the Trek to New Jersey, September 6th and 7th. And finally, the Trek to Chicago, November 22nd and 23rd. We're looking forward to meeting as many of you as we can this year. So make sure that you get ready to trek to Las Vegas.
Hey, y'all, this is Davey Perez. You are listening to Open Pike Night. Hey, guys, if we pull this off, it's officially the Open Pike Maneuver.
Is this thing on? Hello, hello. Welcome to Open Pike Night. I'm your host, John T. Bolds, here tonight with some amazing guests on stage and in the studio to have a conversation with the man who helped bring a long-running punchline in Star Trek to the modern age with terrifying results. We have steeled ourselves for this night, brushed off our Remembrance Day pins, packed out our cold weather gear, rolled for initiative, dexterity, and fun. We've enlisted the Winchester boys and given them the finest red uniform shirts we could find. And of course, we're glad as always to welcome our friend Buckley. And our valued guests on the Open Pike Night stage have come to show their amazing support. Joining me today are my co-hosts. The man who would shove either of his co-hosts to safety, unless there was a guest as awesome as tonight's. Host of Sudden But Inevitable, Jesse.
That's correct, Producer John, and because it is Monday, the eyes that are both dead and hungry at the same time are mine.
Okay, Garfield.
And the man who is all too familiar with the consequences of gore and spit and keeps the finest bleach wipes handy at all times. Host of Green Shirt, a newbie trek through TNG, Cameron.
The podcasting that is in my thoughts I let into my heart. Too much?
Tonight, we have an amazing special guest joining Open Pike Night for the first time. A man who knows how to take a slow, rubber mask-wearing brute and turn it into the most terrifying Star Trek enemy since the Borg. A man who is all too familiar with stepping into an established property rife with the weight of fantasy relationships created by audiences. A man who isn't afraid to let the bodies hit the floor or let the hammer fall. Writer of Memento Mori and All Those Who Wander. Davey Perez, welcome to Open Pike Night.
Hola! Thanks for having me. That's quite an intro, guys. I feel like I'd like to listen to this guy talk. Who's this guy you're talking about, Davey? He seems so prolific.
Right? He sounds pretty cool, right?
He does.
And we're extremely excited to have you on. So, the way our interviews usually go, we split up each of the sections by different hosts, and Cameron will start us off tonight with some questions.
It seems I won the initiative role.
Yeah.
Well, so, Davey, it seems that you have found your purpose in life, perhaps, which is to tell amazing television stories. So how did that come to be? What was the germinating seed that got you interested in writing?
Oh, boy. You go for the easy questions first.
Chronologically.
It's always been in me. As a little boy, I was always... I was a performer. I was making people laugh. And in high school, I was in all the drama clubs, even though I was kicked out of 4 high schools. And I began as a background actor. I was an extra on shows like 90210 and Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm.
And, I thought I was going to be an actor, but then I just became very conscious of not wanting to be inside a story and wanting to be on the other side of it. And it was actually, I was teaching acting to these kids in East LA and writing adaptations of plays and musicals for them to perform. And that was really the first time that I started to kind of write things that weren't song lyrics, because I was also a musician, and seeing it perform and realizing that I could create something and hand it over to other people to have fun with and kind of be outside of it and watch it. That was literally the moment I was like, oh shit, I'm a writer. And it still took a journey to get to where I'm at, but it was kind of having that clarity to be like, great, I know what I want to do. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to do it.
You said you were writing adaptations. What were you adapting?
Well, like the kids would watch Aladdin and they'd want to do like a 20-minute version of a Disney musical, and basically sing some songs and have like the loosest of story connections, or like Bye Bye Birdie of all things, just taking a 2-hour movie that the kids wanted to sing songs from and do like a 20-minute performance for their parents. And so it was literally like, just getting the 3 scenes that make the most sense for like an 8-year-old to do, and then getting to sing the song.
That's awesome. Well, we'll continue on that journey, but let's take a moment, because we here at Open Pike Night are kind of obsessed with the fact that the Strange New Worlds Writers Room had a D&D group that I hear you were the DM for. So how did you get interested in Dungeons and Dragons, and what can you tell us about this campaign?
Oh man, so I mean, I got interested in D&D back in the early Satanic Panic days, right?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, my brother was playing with some friends, and then I got to play one campaign with him, and then we weren't allowed to play. And then in high school, I had a buddy who we were playing AD&D and calculating THAC0 and doing all of that. And that was like what I would do on the weekends. I'd sneak out of the house to go to this older friend's house and play and then play Magic in between setups, because we'd get new players in all the time, and they'd have to create characters, and like some of us would be like, oh, we got to wait a half hour. This friend who worked at a comic book store was like, you guys got to play this new game called Magic the Gathering. And so it all goes back to the 90s. And I started playing again actually at Supernatural.
Okay.
Supernatural, we had a campaign that went for a while, and I was DMing there, doing Lost Mines of Phandelver into The Curse of Strahd. And for Strange New Worlds, because we were all online, I was trying to do the Roll20 thing, and it was hard. It was hard to get everyone at the same time. We did a little bit of Lost Mines of Phandelver, and I got everyone into the one of the caves, and that's where they still are till this day. They're sort of. I had a second kid, and the second wave of pandemic happened, and the game has been in that stasis ever since.
So there's no season 2 quest.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. We did talk about, actually, Anitra and I did talk about kindling the when I figure out the night that I could not play Magic, not watch the kid, and not write, maybe I could do that.
Fit it in.
No Magic until you finish your Star Trek, and no
exactly
D&D
right.
until you finish your Magic.
You have to watch these, right? You have to watch these episodes of Star Trek before you go be a nerd and play D&D.
Man, your life sounds hard, Davey. I gotta say,
it's rough.
It sounds
really
rough, man.
Guys. I'm surrounded by toys and board games, and I gotta watch old sci-fi. It's really hard.
Well, that's the life.
And write new sci-fi, yeah.
But that's the life of a parent of young kids. You're surrounded by all these games that you're like, well, we'll play them someday when you're older.
Oh, I got like what is that? Mansions of Madness somewhere, which I loved. Ooh. I played it twice at a friend's, and I loved it. Got it as a gift, and I have not been able to play it. Yeah, that's a great game too.
Yeah, my board game shelf is full of those. Like, we got them. We got it finally. We'll play it one day.
Yeah.
Well, so how did you get from teaching kids adaptations of Disney movies to writing for television? How'd that journey go?
I mean, it was a hustle. I was working at set PA jobs at the time, and working in production, and did go back to community college to take camera classes, because working on sets, I wanted to know like the conversations that were happening around me. So I took a bunch of cinematography classes and writing classes and everything. And I worked at a place called the National Association of Latino Independent Producers. And I was a summer intern. I was supposed to just be a summer intern for them. And like really, like within 2 weeks, they were like, "You have a lot of set production experience." I'm like, "Yes, I do." And so then they sort of offered me a job. It meant I had to quit community college, but I started working at a place that was sending me to New Mexico and Tucson to actually film people's short films and to like. So I was then doing like production work as a production manager, but it was far from the creative work, right? Doing production stuff. So from that, I met a man that changed my life at ABC. His name was Tim McNeil, and he's I think now the SVP of Talent Development and Inclusion, if that's what they still call that department. And I met him, and he sort of asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, "Look, I don't tell people this, but the truth is I want to be creative. I want to write and direct." And he says, "Okay, well, everyone says that." And I said, "That's true." Says, what are you doing about it? Are you writing or are you directing? And I said, "No, I just don't have, and I actually he sort of challenged me to be honest with him, because I think when you meet someone like that, you're always like, I think ABC is great and I would be really neat here." And he said, "Hey, look, you seem like a cool young man, but you've just told me how great the company I work for is, and I don't know anything about you." And I was like, "Oh, this guy's calling me out." And so I just said, "Here's the deal. Like, I come from East LA and my dad's from Mexico. I dropped out of 4 schools. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I have a passion. I have a story. I've struggled, but I'm going to do it. And I don't, if you don't help me out, that's fine. I'm going to figure it out." And he goes, "Okay, that guy I can help. I can help that guy." And he sort of helped me to realize that you just got to present people the truth and not be embarrassed by where you come from or what you're doing. And more often than not, someone might lend you a hand and help you out. And even meeting him, he was like, "Great, I can point you in some directions, but I'm not gonna, you're still gonna have to fight for your own opportunity." And I got into a program there at ABC called the Associates Program, and it was like a PA. It was a glorified PA in different departments. I got to work in creative development. I was like 30, I think 32. So I was like the oldest PA. And I was answering phones and getting, people coffee and making copies, but I was reading television scripts. I was, ironically, Ugly Betty was on the air at the time. So I was probably reading Henry scripts, without being aware of that I'd work with him someday. And that was the beginning of my writing career, because that gave me access to production people who then hired writers PAs, and I ended up with a writers PA job. Mm-hmm. And it was still a long journey. Like I started applying to the ABC writing program, which Tim also looked over, but it took me 5 or 6 years of applying and not getting in. And like the first 3 years, didn't even get an interview, didn't even get past the first round. And he kept telling me, I said, "Look," like he said, he goes, "It's you that's going to get in." And it's like, I can tell you about these programs, I can tell you about the stuff that you need to be doing, but I'm not going to make a phone call for you, because that's not how this works. And so, got to a place where, in 2013, I was working for Noah Hawley as his assistant on Fargo, which was its own journey to get to there. And got into some writing workshops, and I wasn't going to apply to the Disney ABC writing program that year, because I thought, well, I'm working for a showrunner now. I'll put some time in here, and this is kind of my path. And I did write a Once Upon a Time spec, and I had a mentor at ABC. One of the executives I used to get coffee for was kind of being a mentor, Sarah Hughes. And she read the draft of the Once Upon a Time, and she called me and she's like, "I cover the show, and this read like an episode. Like, what are you doing? Apply to the program. Like, don't be stupid." And so it was funny, because I was not applying out of my own kind of jadedness. Right at a certain point, you just give up, and encouraged to actually apply to the program again, and going, "Oh, they're not gonna select me." And And that was the year that I got through the interview round, and I got through the final selection, and it was amazing, because I was working for Noah. Warren Littlefield, who was a producer on the show, and if you know anything about television, is a legend in television. And I wasn't telling the people I work for that I was like a finalist, because I just felt like I don't want them. And then I finally kind of piped up. I said, I'm a finalist to the ABC writing program. It's stressing me out, and I'm sorry if I'm off my game. And Warren's like, oh, I know the woman who runs the program over there. And I was like, yeah. He goes, you want me to make a call? I'm like, yeah. And I was already a finalist. I was already in like the top 20 or whatever they were selecting. I'm sure his call was very helpful, but it was amazing that someone of that caliber would call on behalf of an assistant. And I would never. It was funny because I remember telling him, like, but you don't even know if I'm a good writer, because he never read. He looked at me and goes, I've worked with you and I know you enough to know you're a good writer. And it sort of stayed with me that I was like, oh, there's an element to this that is beyond the page, and I like to think that he knows a little something about it. So he made that call, and Janine said she already had me on her short list either way, but it just all worked out that I got into that's essentially my big break, was getting into the ABC writing program. And off of that, getting into the American Crime Room, which, look, everything is connected if you really look at my journey, because I walked into a producer's meet on American Crime, and there was Michael McDonald, and I was like, hey, I used to get you coffee in the weekly meeting back in the old ABC days when I was a PA. And he's like, holy shit, you're that really old PA. I'm like, yeah. And we hit it off, and I haven't talked to him in a bit, but I love Michael, and I loved working with him on that show, and it was him and I instantly had a great connection. And then he's like, you need to meet John Ridley. I think John would really like you, and I did meet John, and apparently he liked me enough to hire me on that first season and bring me back for season 2.
Man, so speaking of beyond the page, this is a little bit reverse meta and, weird, because normally I wait till the end to do my section. But Hemmer does state that an engineer's 2 most important tools are his mind and his hands. What would you say are a writer's 2 most important tools?
Wow, that's a good one. I would say the most important tool is your perspective. Your point of view on life. It's sort of the secret sauce that you can bring, because regardless of your experience, no one's had your exact journey in life, and so you can always bring that to the table. And the other tool I would say is other people. And I mean that in every aspect, because a lot of my story comes from other people's experiences. I watch a lot of documentaries, read a lot of biopics, and also dialogue. Sometimes I just listen to people talk, and I'll be like, that was an interesting way of saying that. I'd love to turn that into a line of dialogue. And I do. I steal things people say in the room, or things people say to me. I'll say, that's funny, and I'll reuse it. Your individual point of view and perspective, and the power to listen, I guess, is that second one, would be, listen to the people around you, listen to yourself, and listen to the world that you live in.
I think those are both really good answers, and I think to have them right at the forefront might indicate, their where they go on that list. So thank you. I think that's very good. We do, I think, have a question from our friend Meg. If you'd like to cue that up, Producer John.
Yep, here we go.
Hi, this is Meg, a big fan of yours, Davies, and big fan of Supernatural. And I was just wondering, what was it like to join a show that was so established, 12 seasons in, with such a fervent fan base? And do you have a favorite episode that you wrote, and a favorite episode that you were a part of or weren't a part of? And were you a fan of the show before you started working for it? Thanks.
Out of the gate with a Supernatural question.
Yeah. That's a great one, Meg. It was like a 3-parter. I love it. How was it to join such an established show? I won't lie, it was slightly daunting, but it was also kind of reassuring because I knew that they had done it and they will continue to do it. So job security wise, I figured, okay, I'm here for a bit, and all I have to figure out is how to have fun here. I don't have to invent the wheel or reinvent the wheel. So that part was cool. The part of like the canon and the characters, and I don't want to repeat story arcs, all of that was sort of living in me. But thanks to the fandom, actually, because I'll be honest, like I did a really big dive into the Wikipedia pages, the Reddit pages, both dark and not so dark. Like I was reading like the toxic feedback as well as the positive feedback and going, holy shit, there's a lot here. And it was sort of a nice primer to what I was getting into. And I still went in like thinking, okay, I'm going to stay on the positive, try to just tell some really interesting stories. My favorite episode that I wrote, God, it's so hard because I love different elements of each one. I love the fun cowboy stuff in Tombstone. Stuck in the Middle with You is probably one of my favorites because it was a season 1 and it was the first time where I was like, can I do something crazy? Could I just write like a Tarantino movie as an episode? And Andrew Dabb was like, yeah, absolutely. And then Bob Singer was like, what is this about? And we were like, it's like The Killing. It's like Stanley Kubrick's The Killing. He's like, well, I like Stanley Kubrick. And so we sort of like got to do this, form breaking episode, which was, for me and as a first year on the show to be like, I'm going to break format right away. I thought that was really cool that they let me do that. And I was able to do it. The Halloween episode I did in season 15, I think it was. I'm born on Halloween, so that's got a sweet spot. I got to create my own movie monster, and we did a fake trailer with that, and we just had a lot of fun with that universe.
Did you have a favorite episode outside of the ones you did?
No, those suck. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Red Meat and Baby were always the two that I would like go back to. And for me, I was like, this is when they were doing something interesting with the characters. Like Baby is all the perspective of the car, but they do a really good job on focusing on the boys and their relationship. And Red Meat was such an immediate problem for them to try and solve. It was like, he was bitten by a werewolf and he was like bleeding out. And so the immediate problem that also reveals character depth, that's I love that stuff. That's like my wheelhouse. So those are the kind of the two I would always watch.
So it sounds like Supernatural was a pretty good primer for then Star Trek. You're entering this bigger universe. You've got a lot of canon to deal with. You've got a lot of both positive and toxic fan feedback. What were some of the big lessons you learned from Supernatural you were able to apply to your Strange New Worlds time?
There's so many. Just have fun with it. Just focus on the story and the characters. And like the big secret or not so secret is that I knew way more about Star Trek than I did about Supernatural. I grew up watching the original series with my dad, was watching TNG as it aired as a young man, dating myself. I watched a good chunk of DS9 and then fell off around that time because, teenage years and bands and, all that nightlife stuff, work.
Had to be cool.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, even though I'd still be like, oh, well, did I miss a Warp episode? Damn it. But, the practical lessons, too, as far as like, Supernatural is a procedural show that has a monster of the week, that has a problem of the week, and it has these characters that you know and love that you want to learn a little bit about, but you're ultimately just want to see these characters that you know and love solve the problem, and so that is what sort of I kind of focus on, at least in the writing. It's like, what is the problem? What are they trying to solve? Focus on that. And then in them solving this problem, we will learn a little bit, hopefully, about the characters and get to reveal some aspects about them that we love.
So those problems and often the problem solving in Supernatural were very supernatural. They were magical based. And in Star Trek, they at least try to throw some technology and science into it. Was there any sort of adjustment period to that, to not just being able to go like, oh, well, it's magic?
I'm actually someone who grew up with a faith-based background, raised Catholic, was perfect for Supernatural because even though it's sort of magic and fantasy, there's some sort of mythos that's based on either Judeo-Catholic belief or Greek Roman belief or whatever. We would kind of go into fairy tales like some sort of Gaelic thing. So there was always something there with rules. And so in sci-fi, the rules are science. And so I kind of just, I don't know a lot about science, but if I could look up a Wikipedia page or Google it or call Aaron McDonald, who's our science advisor, like in Memento Mori, there's a lot of science in there. I remember we had a lot of conversations where it was like, okay, we want to put them somewhere that feels like they're underwater, but they're not. And what would be really dense like that? And we were like, it's not a nebula because we've done that. And she sort of turned us on to the idea of a brown dwarf. And then I looked at brown dwarfs and, how things would actually work and got all the Coriolis forces. And then I would sometimes put in like fake, like I would put in like what I think the science is. And then she would read it and she's like, it doesn't actually work that way. And I'm like, great, what's the real science? I haven't done the cop out, which I know we are allowed to do. And some people have done, where you put insert science nonsense here. Maybe I did actually. I take that back. I did put science that I'll figure out later in one little area.
You don't have to do it. I'll do it, but it does need done.
But it's there, like it's a placeholder. But I think the more you can ground your idea and your story in some sort of rules, some sort of reality, then you can kind of give us enough to warp it and then make it. You believe that they could survive surfing a black hole if you explain to us the science of the black hole, and they're like, well, they know black holes, so they must know that they can surf them.
And as long as Erica Ortegas is at the helm.
Yeah, Erica Ortegas, man, she's too bad.
I find that so interesting because Pike literally says to La'an in this episode, the best miracles are based in truth, right? So it's like you're using that same philosophy to write magic or science depending on what's there. That's a really cool parallel, Davey. There's no question here. That's just cool.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Sometimes I get it right.
So we'll transition from the start of your career and get into entering Star Trek, not specifically your Strange New Worlds episodes, but stepping into just the Star Trek cultural phenomenon and cornerstone. Did you have any moments before you started writing for the show after you'd been hired where you thought, okay, every word I write is going to be analyzed now and for decades in the future, and possibly after I'm dead, people will still be watching these episodes and obsessing over them?
I mean, in the abstract, I kind of knew that going in because, like we've said, Supernatural was a great primer for that. The idea that you make canon, and to some people that canon is very important. And it means something to them, and you want to be careful with that, and you want to respect that. But I think on this show in particular, I think I really felt it when the Gorn episode came out, and I knew people were going to react the way that they were. Mm. I had an interview where I tried to over-explain my process. I think a snippet of my explanation got received out of context, and I think that was a moment where I was like, oh shit, I gotta be super extra dynamically careful with every minute thing I say, because the context of it has to be very clear. Because if the context is not clear, then other people will attribute their own context and meaning. And I don't want them to ever attribute something negative or something that they receive as wrong, especially if that's not my intention. Because the thing that I've said and will continue to say is my goal is that everyone watching it has a positive experience, and that it doesn't undo anything that they believe that is supposed to come after, but maybe it'll inform it in some way or give you a different angle, or like, I didn't think of it that way. Like, I want it to still be possible for people to hold on to their version,
Yeah. Except for Hemmer fans.
Yeah, Hemmer dead, so let's be real. Hemmer got...
But everybody else, yeah.
I love it. Yeah. He gone. Yeah.
Don't worry, there will be more conversation about that later on. So we've been told by some of our guests, some of the actors, that actors use specific words to find their character's voice. Like, what process do you use when you're having to write in so many different voices for a series like this?
Oh, that's interesting. I kind of just imagine them having, it's kind of hard. That's a hard question because I've gotten to the point where I know the story that I need to tell, but as far as what characters sound like and what they might say, I kind of just trust as I'm writing it I'm watching it. Yeah, I kind of step outside of it, and I just put the characters that I know or think I know or hope I know together and see how they would phrase something. And a lot of times, the first draft sounds a lot like the way I would say it, and then I have to go back and be like, well, how would they really say it? And then luckily, there's a writer's room, and we have executive producers who also will read something and be like, mostly good. Here, this doesn't sound like Mbenga, or here, Lon sounds actually like Uhura for a reason, and you're like, oh yeah, that is a little too, Uhura there. But it is like just feeling that you let the characters kind of play out the scene. And in my head, they're so alive, and it's so great. And then there's the performers themselves who are so awesome, and it's like you give them a scene, and sometimes they'll be like, hey, I feel like I might say it this way, and you're like, oh, okay, why are you feeling you might say it that way? And then you have a conversation, and then you find, like, as long as the way you say it doesn't undo the point of the scene, I think it's okay. But there's like a difference between my version of Pike, Anson's version of Pike, Pike's version of Pike, and so we got to find the right one,
It must be significantly different writing for season 2 than season 1 now that you've seen that go through the performer filter and everything.
Yeah. I mean, look, in season 1, you write it down and you're like, I hope to say it. I hope it's fine. I hope it's great. And they, I wasn't on set. I was on a Zoom monitor overseeing episode 4, and was a lot of like texting, answering, and getting a call and having to work it out. For the most part, everyone was just excited and just doing the thing. And then I was on set for All Those Who Wander. I was there for prep and shooting and getting to work in person with everybody and being on set. And that was awesome. I got to take my picture holding the phaser rifle, and and then getting to see everyone's process was very helpful, because in season 2, writing certain things, I got a better understanding to, I'm going to get ahead of this thing that I think they might, they've explained to me how they perceive things or how they receive certain things. So this is helpful in writing this, that I'll just kind of get there. You don't, you collaborate, right? You don't want to dictate, you don't want to mandate, and you also don't want to sort of give up your own voice in a thing. So you find a nice way to collaborate.
You told us about watching TOS growing up and TNG, DS9. Like, your trajectory directly follows mine with Trek. So I fully get where you're coming from. I'm like, yeah, TNG, DS9, and then it just kind of tapered a little bit.
Voyager's awesome. Look, I go back and like, especially now, like, homework is watching old Trek. And so I love going back and being like, wow, they were doing this back then. Shit, I didn't see this live. This is a great episode,
Yeah. So what like TNG, what are your standout episodes, your favorites and characters?
I mean, the first one where Q shows up, right? Farpoint or something.
The first
like
one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the pilot, right? Gotta love that. Gotta love, Crazy Riker, when he's going nuts in the psych ward.
Don't worry, Cam, you'll get there.
There's the Prime Directive one where they think put the Picard as a god. That's a good one. I'd love the sci-fi tropey ones, but they also have, Darmok is like, come on, everyone loves that. Gotta love, so I love a lot of the people, the low hanging fruit ones, but I just, I also love the sci-fi, mission of the week that they go and what's the one where Data to relocate he has to relocate a colony because they're going to get eradicated. I think there's like a race who's like, this colony shouldn't be here, and if they don't move, we're going to eradicate them. Yeah, and that's a great one because it's a good sci-fi problem, and it's like trying to, how do you argue with an alien race that doesn't have your same morality?
Yeah. And what lengths will you go to save people from themselves? And
right. And I think that it ends up being like a legal loophole that Picard finds is the answer.
To say how corporate law can save your colonial interests.
Corporate law can save colonialism. That's a great lesson.
I think that's the one where we that started the trend of Picard getting hung up on and him not liking it.
It goes on and on. Data proving, measure of a man. Proving if does he have rights. You know, 4 lights. I can't. It's
my heart.
Excellent.
Yeah,
and DS9. Like you said, did I miss a Worf episode? Is Worf one of your go-to characters?
I love Worf. I just love because he's he's a man who's trying to struggle with his culture in a way that a lot of Latinos do, and I know a lot of the Black community have glommed onto him as well, rightly so. And he's like a guy who's trying to make it in a Starfleet world where he has this background that other people don't understand, and he's trying to struggle with the Klingon side, and he's code switches, and that's such a person of color thing. But he's also just a funny character, right? He's just his bachelor party on DS9 is like, probably one of my favorite episodes.
It's one of my favorite episodes, yeah. We know you can't tell us what you know about season 2, but how much do you know about season 2?
How much do I know about season 2? I know how it begins and I know how it ends. And I know and have watched every single episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who did you kill? That's what we want to know. Who did you knock off this time?
That's a very good question. There potentially may be a death. It may not be one of our people, or there may be nobody that dies. There's all.
A death would be light for you, so just one.
Yeah,
we
did the math. You killed the most people in season 1.
That tracks. Yeah, characters of the week may die. How about that?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Anybody who is blue, we just assume is ready to go.
Just on the,
like all of your ensigns were wearing blue uniforms. Hemmer, Buckley. I mean, like it was kind of a thing.
You got one of each in all those who wanders. You got a gold shirt, a blue shirt, and a red shirt. It was kind of everyone's on the table and no one's safe.
And a blue guy in a red shirt. So it's
a blue guy in a red shirt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent combo.
Yeah, that's a purple.
So what for season 1, or just for Strange New Worlds in general, what has been your favorite fan reaction?
Oh wow. I think the love that Memento Mori got as an episode. I was not expecting that. That's the outpouring of positive people saying it was the best Trek in X amount, or their favorite, and I thought that's pretty big things to be measured up against. And even if it's in the top 10 for people, I co-wrote that one, and The Room broke that one, and it was a concept that I was lucky enough to be able to shepherd and be a part of, and then it was directed by Dan Liu, who directed the shit out of it, and every performer really brought their A game. So it was like a combination, and then it was cut together well, and it's very overwhelming and humbling, and it feels good.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching them each episode at a time and engaging with our community, and it really felt like episode 4, like those who were still on the fence about Strange New Worlds, that was the one where they're like, nope, I'm in. This is a show now. So I was wondering if they had awesome. They didn't plan we're going to have a big cinematic one like episode 4 to really kind of get those stragglers. It was just all those great things coming together, like you said.
Well, yeah, and it was like a classic Trek episode, and it was sort of, Henry loves a good space battle, and he's like, I want a good space battle, and I love, Balance of Terror, and I was like, if we get to do that and do our send up of it, I really wanted to do that one. and you know, it's funny because he very very you know, repeatedly kept telling me, "Four's really good, man. You should be proud. Four's really good, really." And I was like, "Thanks." And he's like, "No, it's really good. You should be proud." And would text me, and I'm like, "I don't know what this is. I don't know what this means." It's yeah. and I was like, "We should all be proud, you know." And he's like, "No, but you know," he sort of gave me a little bit of in a good way, was sort of telling me, you know, you both did a good job with that script. And when it aired, it was just sort of like, when I saw it the first time, even without VFX, I went, "Shit, that's actually pretty good."
Yeah.
And you rarely say that for a director's cut. You really do. We all hate everything when we see it for the first time. Yeah. Akiva, when he hired me, was like, you know, what are some of your favorite episodes before, you know, this was during the interview that we did online on a Zoom call. I go, "Well, I love Arena and I love Balance of Terror." And he's like, "Funny thing, you know, he's like, we're bringing back the Gorn." And I was like, "What? I got to work on this show." You're like, at that point, I'm like, "I'll pay you." And I was lucky to get the job, and so to have the honor of writing that episode where we get to introduce our sort of bad for the season, it was awesome, you know.
I think it cuts across Trek generations, right? Because like you were saying, it has so much classic Trek in it, but it looks so new and good that it really is a Trek for every generation of Trek fans, I think. And I'm so glad that we get to hear some of this process. I'm wrapped to the screen.
And you know, you hit on something kind of cool though, which I think is, with that first season, like, depending on the fan you talk to, they'll have a different number one. Like, we did a good job of like running the gamut of, this is what Trek does when Trek does a fantasy episode. And some people are like, "I love the fantasy episodes, and so Elysian Kingdom is going to be their number one." And that's rightly so, their number one. And other people are like, "I love straight ahead sci-fi, and so or, you know, I love when monsters pop out of people." And so and I love that this fan base is so diverse, that we can all have number ones, but we can all celebrate that someone else's number one will also be different, and that's cool. You know, and if Memento Mori is on a lot of number ones list, then that's pretty chévere, pretty cool too.
So what Jesse is saying is, "Hey man, number 4 is pretty good.
Yeah, you should be proud." Yeah, exactly. Number 4 is pretty good. You should be proud. God damn it, Henry!
Is this code? What is this?
What is this? Am I fired? Tell me, please.
So what's the weirdest fan reaction that you've seen?
I mean, I don't want to go negative, but I think it was the sort of like when my words were taken out of context.
Yeah.
And I'll say it. I had put in an interview that perhaps James Kirk never saw a Gorn, and that's what I said. But what I meant was, he'd never seen a Gorn before his adventure on Arena.
Right.
And someone took what I said to mean he'd never seen a Gorn during the episode Arena, and that makes no sense to me. And why? But there's people who that episode means so much to them that they immediately think that I was trying to undo that episode, and I wasn't. In over explaining my own process with the Gorn, I created a situation where, and look, we're all creatives and we're actually very sensitive. So I felt bad. I felt bad that people were reacting poorly to the Gorn, or to the reintroducing that. And that I, in my own endeavor to try and make something okay, I had the opposite effect, right? I tried to explain a writer's process, a writer's thinking, and in making it not clear enough, somebody just immediately, you know, took it the wrong way. Yeah. So I'm going to go on record to say James T. Kirk fights a Gorn in Arena, and that does happen. And he does shoot a diamond cannon gun at him. And if you watch the episode, Spock is getting off on that. He really enjoys watching James T. Kirk kick this Gorn's ass. And to me, that always read as like, there's a personal investment in beating up on these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's beautiful. And I gotta say, there is a contingent of fans that you know we all are aware of out there that just sort of assumes that the creatives behind any given show are very cynical people who only care about their paycheck and don't care about the details. So just if our show could be anything, tell your creative friends, Davey, this is the show you go to clear up anything that somebody took out of context or,
So when they come for your ass,
when
they come for your ass,
send them to Open Pike Night,
Right.
and they will clear it right up.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the reputation. We want to have multiple
I want to be
reputations.
clear. Like, I'm not trying to call anybody out. I'm not trying to even get on
Right.
I'm not even trying to explain myself really. Like, I don't want to over explain myself. I just want to say that, to your point, I love Star Trek. I enjoy Star Trek. I want people to love and enjoy Star Trek. And I'm put in a position of having to write in a universe that other people have created realities for themselves. And yet now I have to make choices that are going to be officially canon, that is going to rub up against some things that you might have been holding on to for a while. And I'm sorry for that. But, it's a thing where we want to tell these stories and we want people to enjoy these stories, and we want the universe to grow and expand, and we want these characters to have, fleshed out adventures.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that you're a Spurk shipper. Is that accurate? I'm hearing Spurk shipper.
Look, man, we don't. Vulcan social constraints are, there's a lot to explore there. They're logical. That's about it.
Well, speaking of people who love the Gorn and weird fan reactions, we've got another clip.
Hi, Mr. Perez. Hi, boys. I would like to start by apologizing for not doing the stupid bit that you told me to do. I'm just going to fit them all in one call because that's easier. I am Venus. I am Gornfluencer Venus, Butch Ortegas on Twitter, and I have so many questions about the Gorn. Namely, their design. What were those influences like? Did you have any hand in their visual design directly, or was it something that you got your hands on after deciding how you wanted to reintroduce them? What was that process like? How was the team for that? Was that enjoyable? Was that something that you have a passion for and you would love to do with more Star Trek aliens? Because I would like to see more Star Trek aliens. My other main question is, I know that there was a statue of the Gorn made for season 1 wrap, and I know that the Gorn were practical effects. How can I, as a fan who loves the Gorn very much, get my hands on one of those? How can I do that? If necessary, you can just invoice the boys for it. They are totally willing to pay expensive, so many dividends for getting me one of the Gorn from SNW. Thank you.
What great questions. The company that designed this with us is called Legacy, and they were awesome to work with. And it was a lot of Henry and a lot of Akiva and a little bit of me. Not a lot. I mean, they graciously looped me in. So in the early days, they were working. So even before Memento Mori, they were working on creature designs. And then when it became clear that I was going to get to write both Gorn episodes, they sort of said, loop me into some of this, and got to give my input and on choices and color mostly, some of the creature design, and then they designed the practical puppets. And the Gorn, what I got to do, what I thought was fucking awesome, to be honest, was flesh out the life cycle stuff. Their how they're born, their motivation when they're born is just to feed and to eat, because whichever one of this batch is gonna feed and eat the most is gonna become the alpha of the batch. And so the idea that they're ravenous when they're born, and that's when they're hatchlings. They get a little bit bigger, and then they're younglings. So they're a little bit more intelligent. They're a little bit more savvy. They might not attack right away. They'll sort of, and that's the middle phase. That's the adolescent phase. And then, after that is the adult. And God help you if you ever meet the one that has actualized into an adult, because now that they're they might not be a rubber suit, but they're so a lot of that, and a lot of the story mythos foo of why we can't track them, and then all of a sudden we find a way to track them and all that. So that I got to play with and be a part of, because as the writer of that episode, I got to like, oh, cool, I get to do the rules, and I got to work with Henry and Akiva on that. And as far as the statues are concerned, I have one in my closet. It's still in its box. Yeah, so they exist. I was fortunate enough to get one. I don't know how many. I know Henry has one. I'm pretty sure Akiva has one. I don't know who else might have one.
Have you named it?
I haven't. I have not named it. I'd like to think he was the alpha.
I mean, Michael Gorn would be pretty appropriate.
Michael Gorn. That's the Gorn identity.
We did that
Jason
one.
Gorn.
I think
Daniel
that's actually.
Day-Gorn.
I think Jason Gorn was how we closed our episode for Memento Mori. I think
So many Gorn puns.
it was. Yeah.
There's the Gorns that keep on giving. I'm too scared to display it, so that's why it's still in its
Nice.
box. I don't know how you could get your hands on one because they were limited to a specific amount made by Legacy to commemorate the first season, and specifically for the people who worked on that episode. So the director may have gotten one, Chris J. Byrne, and now they might get bombarded by people.
Yeah. Venus, we will let you know if we end up with an invoice at the Open Pike Night account.
It's a good question from Venus. Yeah.
So you were put in charge of the Gorn. You got both Gorn episodes. How did that come about?
At a certain point, I think it became intentional. I mean, the submarine portion of the first episode was what I really glommed onto. And I was like, I'm sort of a genre writer. It's got a horror-ish, the unseen enemy chasing you. It's an action adventure. And it's just sort of like a case of the week as far as survival is concerned. And so I got to write that one. And then as we were figuring out the back half of episodes, I don't really remember how it came about. But so at a certain point, it was just like, oh, I guess, yeah, we got to, someone's got to write those episodes. And Davey did the Gorn episode, so let him, do the B Gorn episode. I said, hell yeah, cool. And also, actually, more likely as well, that was flagged as our horror episode.
Oh, okay.
So 109 was always going to be our horror episode, and I have that in my wheelhouse. Kayla as well. She's definitely got that in her wheelhouse, but she wanted to do the fantasy episode, and I got to do this one, and it was awesome.
Excellent.
So Memento Mori and All Those Who Wander almost feel like the first and second part of a single episode, and clearly some of that is because you were in charge of both of those, but is there some way that the character arcs are assigned at the beginning of the writing process that has to do with the similarity between these episodes, or was it just a conscious decision to have one kind of feel like the second half of the other one?
I think that was a subconscious decision. We know that we want our characters to go on a journey and they're going to arc out in the way that they are. But I think, and it was the benefit, I think, of having them both assigned to me, because I was sort of inside the characters already and sort of knew setups that I set up them in for. So it was easier for me to land those things, right? Like the Emmer and Uhura relationship.
Right.
That was set up very cleanly in 4. So I was very conscious of that and wanting to pay that off in a very satisfying way. The stuff in my head about Lan's backstory that didn't end up in Memento Mori, but like got sort of hinted at, I could kind of dip into that well a little bit and talk about how her brother was killed. And, it's easy to kind of get in her headspace and write her a little edgy, and it makes sense because I'm sort of aware of what I set up for her. And even just the interactions with Pike, because in the first, Memento Mori, it's very much like I'm getting used to this officer who I brought aboard my ship, and I'm giving them some advice. And then by 9, they're like, no, we're a team. We work together. You're on this team. We're all here. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a really cool, they feel like a bookend, because I think I was lucky enough to write both of them, and they would probably feel that way even if another writer wrote them. But I think there's something in the subtext of it that is, when you get someone that can kind of set up a few things and then pick them off in a way that is satisfying,
Makes sense. Get to knock down your own setups makes it slightly easier to just kind of do it as a natural part of the process.
Right, and it's instead of having to like give somebody notes of like, oh, remember that thing that we did in 4, like it's like, no, I should remember it because I did the thing, you know.
So our friend Mariah actually, I think, has a question that specifically pertains to La'an. If you wouldn't mind queuing that one up, John.
Hi, Open Pike Night. This is Mariah calling from Seattle. And hi, Davey. Thank you so much for being on the show. My question begins with a compliment, which is, simply put, La'an Noonien Singh. She is such an amazing character, so complex and interesting. And my question is about how you approached creating her relationship with her own trauma, because it feels very real. She doesn't remember everything. She has trauma-blocked memories. Her emotions aren't very close to the surface, and every now and then you see a flicker of it. And she sort of has these dissociative episodes, and all of it just feels very much like a lived experience of dealing with trauma. And so I'm wondering what went into creating that. Did you read about people's experiences? Was there, other characters that you are drawing on to make this? And yeah, I'd just love to hear what went into it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Mariah. That was some kind compliments and really insightful question. When I think of La'an's as a representation for trauma survivors and how we managed to get that close to accurate. First of all, the character was created by Akiva, and Akiva had the idea of this character that has this childhood trauma that they are trying to get past and not allow it to inform them, even though we all know trauma informs you anyway. Mm-hmm. And, that was something that was important for him. And he put that in the pilot and wanted to do something with it. There was a kismet of his concept, me as the writer actually having childhood trauma to draw from, and my relationship to it, and my struggles with adulting and having a positive outlook in life while still experiencing and knowing some of the darkness of humanity. And then you have a performer in Chrissy, who, quite frankly, and she's been very open about it, also has childhood trauma in her background. And so she's portraying La'an from the perspective of knowing and understanding the character. I'm writing La'an from a perspective of understanding pieces of the character. And you have Akiva, who had created it because of his own relationship with that concept. And so it's like a trifecta of wanting to give some veracity. And ultimately, look, we are all happy people that get to do amazing things, and we're not defined by those. So La'an is a high-functioning, badass security officer on the flagship of the Federation, but she's got some shit that comes up, and so she's got to deal with it when it comes up.
There is a subtle parallel in Memento Mori between Pike and the Gorn when he realizes, I'm going to have to be willing to trade lives to beat this enemy. And that's after the Gorn make their tactical choice to sacrifice a ship to find the Enterprise. Is this an intentional parallel? Is that something that you put in there on purpose, or was that another one of those like happy accidents that just happens when you're humming along in the process?
What makes me look more brilliant?
Very writerly answer.
Yeah. I look, cards up. I think that was a very happy accident. Look, I wanted to do the submarine trope, the hard decision to make, right? I got to seal the bulkheads, and when you lose your, youngest officer, and it's every submarine movie from the beginning of cinema has a scene like that. So I knew that was something that I wanted to put in there. And then when we were trying to figure out what are some cool, interesting like chess moves that the Gorn can be doing that would also seem completely just unexpected for us, this idea that they would hang their queen, and that they're animalistic and that some of them can die as long as the pack survives. We were like, oh, cool, yeah, absolutely. They would put something out there to get killed, and they wanted us. That's how they put the bait, and we took it. And so that it was just kind of, again, like this great unexpected synergy of like, they do it callously, coldly. Yeah, obviously we're going to kill some people to find out your position, and we do it, and just one is like painful and hard, and it's the horrors of war.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of moment was one of Anson Mount's great performances in that, but both your episodes really did hinge on non-verbal performances. I mean, Memento Mori, I just think, is like a masterclass from Anson Mount. There's like a 5-second period where it's just a close-up on his face going through like 6 different emotions, and it's incredible. And so as a writer, like, how do you convey those important non-verbal cues, or when do you just kind of let it go and trust in the actors?
I mean, Anson's a stud. So like I actually have gotten better at giving more clues, because a lot of what I write is subtext sometimes, and maybe it's too subtextual, because people will then go, what am I supposed to be playing here? And I'm like, oh shit, like I didn't give you the clues, right? And so, but he's just really good at picking up the clues even when you didn't give them to him, and a lot of our actors are. And it's you do put in some lines in there sometimes to be like, we feel the tension, or this is a big moment for them as they think about X. And sometimes it plays and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that was the wrong thing to say because now they're doing too big. Or sometimes they nail it right on the head. But you do learn over time some phrases that an actor could recognize as, oh, that's what they want me to do. They need this from me here. And I think someone like Anson in particular, who's been doing it so much, he can probably look at the dialogue and be like, oh, I see what they need me to do here. I'm trying to think of a particular thing there. I think I might have written in like, the decision is hard on Pike. He knows what he has to do or something. And like, it's so vague, like but what does that mean? But he like gets that and he goes, oh, I can act that. You know what I mean?
But you're telling the director and the actor, like, this is a beat. It's a moment. This is a beat.
This is a moment. We need a thing here. And you could write it that way, or you can write it camera on Pike as he thinks, and it just depends on okay, what's he thinking,
Do you find different actors have different like keywords to trigger them?
Probably, yeah. Some actors probably don't even read the direction. They're just like, I'm just reading my lines, and they'll take their cues from that. Yeah. So it is. I love Chrissy, and she has the best questions. She's someone who really wants to get inside of it, and even if it's in the dialogue or in the slug line, she wants to make sure if she's, is this correct? Am I reading this right? And sometimes her question is like revelation, where you're like, oh, she's pointing to something that I hadn't figured out yet as the writer. I better figure that out before I answer this. And sometimes her question is just a clarification thing. Yeah, they're all great to work with. They all get in there, and Celia has really specific takes on things that is awesome, and she's always wary of getting it right in making sure that we're getting what we need. And so she has the whole cast. Like, we're fortunate to just have a really amazing cast, and I think that makes writing for them so much easier and better. And if there wasn't a name that I said, I should say all their names, because it's it's like, Babs, Jess, Rebecca. It's come on, you got who do you want to play with this week? Melissa, Ethan, yeah, he's okay. He'll get that joke. Ethan is I could say that because he plays magic.
But which actor is your favorite to write for?
Character.
Oh
boy, character.
Which character?
I mean, I love a good Pike speech. You can't go wrong with a good. And I think he's a fun captain to write for, because he is a rally the troops and then let the troops shine He's not a follow me. You know, he's a I gotta inspire you to the point where you do your best selves.
Servant leader.
Which is yeah, and that's hard to write. You could certainly write a leader who's I'm gonna tell you what to do now. It's harder to kind of write a leader who's like, I'm gonna show you the way that you can go and shine yourself.
Yeah.
You know, he's great to write for. I love writing for Lon, as I've explained, just because of the closeness I have for the character. And then, you know, the Rain Man jokes you get to do with Spock. You know? Like there's no other character that you can, you know, sort of sneak in some sort of that absurd humorism.
So you mentioned being a big fan of TOS and TNG, and I think that definitely shines through in your episodes. I have to ask, as a Star Trek fan, how did it feel to write a capital M maneuver complete with a gravity slingshot and everything, man? Like, what did that feel like?
That was dope. I mean, that was like, I was like thinking they're not going to let me do it, right? If they're like, hey, that's a lot of canon too soon, kid. And I was like, it's the Pike maneuver. And everyone's like, yeah, it is. It totally is. And I'm like, fuck yeah, it is.
So cool.
So to give that line to Ortegas, right, is sort of a cool, like, you know, if we pull this shit off, it's the Pike maneuver. And it felt great that the Latin character gets to name the maneuver and the Latin character gets to name the maneuver, you know? So that was kind of awesome. And it's there. It's on the Memory Alpha. It's like, you know, it's a thing that Captain Pike did that is in the annals of Starfleet as his crazy ass maneuver where you get yourself out of a jam. It was really great.
That is so cool. So I think to move into our questions for all those who wander, Producer John, if you wouldn't mind queuing up our other friend Jesse, who is not me.
Hi guys, it's Jesse. I'm really excited to hear you have Davy Perez on stage this week because All Those Who Wander is my absolute favorite episode of Strange New Worlds, with Memento Mori being second. As you know, I am a new Trekkie, and so getting episodes that give that alien xenomorph vibe really gets me excited. My question was, how excited or scared were you to reimagine the Gorn to the Star Trek world and to audiences who have had this one idea of the Gorn for so many years? Also, I believe Hemmer's death was always planned for season 1, so what made this be the time his death happened? Thank you for your time, and vive mucho y prospera.
Well, muchas gracias, Jesse. That's I love the compliments, and the question is pretty good. I was super excited to be a part of reimagining it, and also hesitant and frightened because I was like, how can we do this? Like I was probably where a lot of fans were at the beginning of this process of like, but it's First Contact in Arena, and how can we do that? And so I had to do a lot of mental gymnastics to find the gray areas. And I got there eventually to be like, this is still a species we don't know that much about. They have a legendary status. Some people don't believe they exist. Some people haven't seen them. They're the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, like there was a point where we're like, how alien are we going here, guys? This is pretty alien. And it's like, well, people are going to know we're going alien, so let's just kind of embrace a piece of it. But it was, you know, it's like Alien, The Thing, and Gremlins, where I was kind of, you know, going for a little bit, you know, the sort of John Carpenter, you know, who do you trust, who don't you trust, and what's really gone down here, we don't know. And then tiny monsters are always awesome, and just a lot of filament. You know, when they're running around.
Yeah.
It was like a, you know, working on like an 80s horror set, which was awesome. And as far as the Hammer is concerned of it all, we absolutely, I think in the early days of this episode, when we said it's a horror episode, we had conversations of like, well, what does horror movie do really well? And it's the unexpected death. You know, and you know, there was some version of this where he was going to get got pretty early, because of Psycho, right? Like the person you don't expect to die dies right away.
Yeah.
But then we started having Tasha Yar conversations, and we're like, yeah, we can't. Like, it's got to feel earned, and it has to feel. There's got to be some weight to it. And now I'm just really outing all the things I ripped off. My, one of the first movies I ever saw in movie theaters was Wrath of Khan. And if you're a new Trek fan and haven't seen Wrath of Khan, go see Wrath of Khan. And watch Space Seed if you want to first. You don't have to, but watch Space Seed and then go watch Wrath of Khan. And that ending, man, spoiler, like, ooh, really, really fucked me up as a like 7-year-old, 6-year-old kid. Like, no, this character I just loved from TV and fell in love with, and you did this. And so I was channeling that, and director Chris J. Byrne really, like, immediately after he read the script, he like on a Zoom was like, this is Wrath of Khan. Like, this scene is Wrath of Khan. I'm like, yes, you got it. Yes, it totally is. It's the big speech. It's all the feels. And so, it was always planned, and it made sense for this episode because it was the horror, but then it made sense because it was the culmination of Uhura's arc, really. It was her losing Hammer, realizing I lost another person of my family. Shit, that means this ship is my new family. It was this sort of like 1-2 of like, she wasn't sure where she belonged, and should I stay, should I go? I just lost the one person that means the most to me, and he was able to mean so much to me because I found a new home, and so all of that, it just felt like that was the episode to do that in, and also like, kind of, I wouldn't say I threw down a gauntlet, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this feel like where the fuck happens next, right? Like I let's kill off Hammer, let's get rid of Lon, let's all this crazy shit goes down, and it's like, what just happened? Because we had the benefit of knowing that 10 was a little bit of a left turn. Like all those questions aren't going to get necessarily answered, and then 10 leaves you with the big what the fuck. So like really kind of did a 1-2 on the finale and the ultimate.
What's it like to write for the new engineer?
What new engineer? There's an engineer on the show.
Hey, there you go. Well played, Davey.
Carol Kane? Is it Carol Kane? Can you tell us that?
Yeah. I think that's public knowledge, right?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I know that she's an engineer. She looks to be an engineer.
I was going to ask that exact question though, Davey, because that's what hit me at the end of episode 9. It was like, wait, how is this not the season finale? Like, this feels like a season finale, where the characters are leaving. Uhura's kind of made her arc. She's looking at the comm station. And then, we saw episode 10. And like you said, it's kind of left field. It made sense why we had to kind of bring everyone else's arcs to a close in episode 9. So, but it sounds like maybe that was just you. Was that designed, or was that you kind of doing it?
No, it was a little bit of both. I mean, it was a little bit of conversations with Henry. Like, I want to swing for the fences and do these big things. And he was like, is it too early to do these big things? And, what do we do with, Lon for the finale, and how do we do that? And then when we realized, well, we're going into alternate future, and a big chunk of the episode is so we can still use our characters. We don't have to answer these questions. And there was we kind of embraced it. It was like, yeah, fuck it. Let's do that, And so that kind of came about with a little bit of me sort of testing the waters, and then a little bit of him trying it on, and then embracing, and then kind of pushing it further. And so when writers' rooms are really going and they're in their stride, it's kind of hard to remember where the ideas really came from, because you're just sort of in each other's heads, and you're vibing on each other's ideas. And so for all I know, it was all him, and I just wrote it. It was sort of like that kind of. We did Balance of Terror twice. Like, let's be real. We did. Memento Mori was our send up of it, and then we just straight up did Balance of Terror. And it was so to geek out on being like, so we're getting away with this. Look what we're getting away with.
You did Wrath of Khan twice. I mean, that's what I was reading of Memento Mori, and then. Well, so either way, you got to write basically a finale, a season finale for most of the characters.
We did the Nebula. We did the Nebula of Wrath of Khan, and then we did the end scene. So I just ripped off Wrath of Khan, guys. Figured it out.
It shows the best.
Yeah, speaking of having totally ripped off the Wrath of Khan, so Hemmer's fate is definitely foreshadowed in Memento Mori, right? I mean, he says, my purpose is to fix what is broken, and then Enar believe they can die. Like a writer friend probably could pick out, oh, he's gonna die before the season is over, right? Right when he says that. So how do you decide how much of your hand to show early and which cards?
That's a good question. I guess I'm a big fan of the whole Chekhov's gun thing, and I do like to, because it's satisfying, right? When you're a viewer, when you are like, I think I know what the writer's doing. He did it, Now, you got to be careful, because sometimes you go, I think I know what the writer's doing. It's kind of dumb, So you got to hang enough stuff out there to make them go, I think I know what the writer's doing. Oh, he's not doing that. That's interesting. Oh, shit, he is. That's kind of what I hope to normally accomplish. And then you could only play that trick a couple times. Even in Supernatural, I've been very fond of the shoe drop, but which is almost can be its own trope. So I'm also very weary of it now. But like, I'm always fond of, like, if I can get you to look at a story and get you to forget one element of it, and then at the very end, just remind you, oh, but that thing you forgot is still here. And oh my God, you turned it, and oh shit. Because that's the kind of stuff I love watching. I love watching it or reading. I love reading a good noir. And that's what noir does. Noir will show you who the killer is in the first chapter. And then you'll be like, oh God, that guy was the killer. I've known the whole time, but how did I forget? I endeavor to try and get as good as, Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler.
So we do have two questions, one from Peter and one from Michelle. I feel that you've sort of largely already answered these, but we will go ahead and play them. And if there's anything you want to tack on, then we can sort of replace some of your prior answers in the edit so that it's at least everybody's voice is heard. So John, if you'd like to cue up our friend Peter.
Here he is.
Hi, it's Peter again. Thank you, Mr. Perez, for joining Open Pike Night and sharing your experience as a writer for Season 1. I have a general question about your approach to writing All Those Who Wander. Horror is the genre I'm the least familiar with, so I was wondering what was your approach to creating a horror story within the Star Trek narrative framework. For example, I believe I found some references to Alien and The Thing in the episode. Were those types of references in the story from the beginning, or were they added later during story development? Congratulations on writing 2 memorable Season 1 stories, and I look forward to more in Season 2. Thank you, and live long and prosper.
Well, Peter, I appreciate the question, and I do love horror as a genre, and I endeavor to create stories in that realm. And the thing about horror that I've come to try and explore is the fear of the unknown, and the fear of that's what we're all afraid of, the dark still in some way, right? Whether it's an emotional or intellectual or physical darkness. And so approaching a Trek idea, Devil in the Dark is probably a good one to look at, which is the TOS episode that they get the closest to horror. But most of what Star Trek does is like give us hope and show us the light and show us the future that we all wish that we could have. So it was kind of interesting to be like, what is a Star Trek horror? Empok Nor is another good example of that. So I had some references to kind of guide me, and in a lot of those stories, it was always about putting horror elements on top of the mystery. So I approached it from that, the mystery of this ship, and then, The Thing was a real big influence, as far as like there's this outpost that had this thing happen, and we don't know, and we show up, and oh my God, there's blood and guts everywhere, and there's something running around that could be inside all of us. That's the thing. That's where did I hear that? Where did I see that? Oh shit, that's an alien as well, and and this is actually a little bit more aliens with an S.
Oh, yeah.
You have a group of people, right down to, I had to have Sam Kirk have his game over man scene.
I was going to say, did you ever write him just flat out saying that just for fun?
He came up to me, he just goes, "This is game over, man," right? I go, yeah, okay. and he still wanted to be like, I'm not a weenie, right? I go, no. You're like the one that's right. You're the one who's like, you're the one who's seeing this as the audience sees it. Like this situation is like, we're fucked, right? And he's like, okay, I can play that. Like he just didn't want us, like he didn't want it to feel like cowardice. I'm like, no, this is realism. You're pragmatic. Everyone else is too calm, you know?
So does that mean that Buckley is the dog from The Thing? And
I guess, but
can we talk about Buckley?
Yeah.
Because Buckley was amazing. I want to know how much,
man.
I love Buckley.
Yeah, how much
I want
say
a
did you have in
Buckley
Let's
that?
have some Buckley appreciation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh
is he
my
named
God.
after anything? We've heard that writers name people after stuff.
He is named after, I have a friend named David Martinez who I used to call Buck. And there's multiple reasons why I call Buck. Mostly because I don't want to get into it, but it cracks me up. Why? Yeah. You know, think of the funniest, weirdest guy reason you would call your best friend Buck. And so anytime I could sneak in Buck or Buckley into anything, it's always kind of a shout out to him. Mud is another nickname I had him. Mud, and you know, his name is Mud, or Buck. Just because, you know, it started one day because he was wearing overalls, and I was like, you know, you look like a buck.
Hey, Buck.
And, you know, hey, Buck, you know, take it from there. So that's really where the name came from. Yeah. But let me make sure I'm answering Peter's question. Yeah, and then I did mention that there was the Thing, Aliens, the original black and white Thing, you know, takes place, you know, is actually probably more similar than the John Carpenter remake, because that's at a science lab, and the more, you know, they're both at a science lab, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And Gremlins, like I really was like the whole tiny monsters thing with little moments of levity, because like horror has to be like, I'm gonna get all esoteric here, but I like to write my scripts like there were music, like they were a song, and so I like to have it take a journey, and so there's a refrain, there's a chorus, there's a moment where you're a crescendo, and then you go pianissimo. And so I just approach the jazz of it all in that way. And so in a good horror, there's always a good laugh, there's always a good comment, there's always a good jump scare, you know. And so there's just the language of horror that you start to, like I said, I can get weird, I can get, you know, it's you know, past my bedtime, I can get all kinds of kooky.
As far as surrogates go, you know, I'm sure every audience member got to pick their, oh, that's how I would be in this. And it was refreshing to see the Enterprise crew actually listen to La'an, not, you know, she wasn't the Ripley to everybody else's idiot. But like, who was your surrogate in All Those Who Wander?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's, I would say Spock, I think. Interestingly enough, like there, obviously I got to voice them also. There's little pieces of me, but the like, you know, Spock let out his gangster side, you know.
Yeah.
He was like, he's calm and cool, and he's like, you know, I'm balanced here, I'm doing my Vulcan thing, everyone knows me as a Vulcan. And he let down his guard because in that moment it was fight or flight, and so he had to go full crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so so I, not that I go full crazy in my life anymore, but I've certainly in my past and as an adult, you have impulses, right, that you sit on, and you have reactions to things that you rationalize, or your logical self says, don't react that way. And so for him to be like, no, man, I'm going to go out there and just fucking cap some of these little Gorns because it's their time to die. You know, there's something fun about that for me.
Did you write that he picks up Buckley's gun to do it, or did that just happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the if you have a spear, you know, like that you have the prop department make, like, you got to see it fight, you know, and we've seen him fight with Lurpas and shit. I was like, I actually look, now you're going to mourn the cutting room floor. So
this is what we're here for.
Sequence as imagined that is not producible because we are a TV show was like a full-on crazy fight scene where Spock is parkouring off the corridor walls and, like, you know, spear fighting a Gorn. And, you know, you get a call from production like, yeah, dude, come on.
He's going to walk and he's going to stop and scream.
Yeah, he's going to charge a Gorn and shock it a couple times.
We're giving you guys a lot of money already, okay? Like, come on.
Yeah. They're like, this is not for box office release. So
we'll give you Chekhov's spear. That's what you get.
Yeah,
exactly. You get Chekhov's spear. But yeah, so I was like, as a fanboy, I was like, Spock doing, a little bit of canon on Vulcan stoicism, a little bit of like remembering that they could revert to those cave Vulcans that are fucking vicious, and how do they keep that animal at bay? And it's like a thing that they have. Oh, it's a mantra they have. It's all of their rituals. Well, is there a ritual to just to lower that inhibition? And what kind of crazy do you let out then? And then what was awesome is that, like, well, now that we paid that forward, like the discovery of like, well, that we don't have to resolve that, like we can sort of like, what does that mean for Spock? That he's going to maybe be, he's not the Spock that we know from TOS yet. He's not Mr. Totally Vulcan. I don't identify as human. This is a dude who's exploring himself, and he just let out the human side in a crazy, interesting way.
Yeah. And it can take a while to unring that bell. So
yeah.
Can it be unrung at all?
Yeah.
I don't know. That hug between him and Chapel at the end of that episode, I was like, well, I was there when they were filming that, and I was like, I leaned into Chris. I was like, that's pretty good. I just knew. I was like, that's lost in translation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a nice moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
John, if you want to go ahead and queue up our friend Michelle after her, I think I've only got 2 questions left.
Hey, Open Pike Night. Your interview with Onitra Johnson was moving, inspiring, and I am so glad she came on to share her story, and I can't wait to see what stories she's going to share with all of us for season 2. I'm very happy that Davy Perez is coming on the Open Pike Night stage this week, so welcome. My question is about the episode All Those Who Wander. I loved Hemmer. I was coming to love Hemmer and feel like he's gone too soon, but I do appreciate you giving him a good ending. So thank you for that. But my question is really about Uhura and Hemmer and how those last few scenes and interactions seem to mirror a little bit the end of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, at least to me. So I don't know if that was an inspiration for you when you were writing the episode, but I definitely felt some Wrath of Khan vibes toward the end there. So just wondering if you could speak to that. Also, my Crusher connection of the week, because I do love the character of Dr. Beverly Crusher, is the creep factor of that episode and how scary it was for Star Trek. Gates McFadden, who played Dr. Crusher, directed the episode Genesis, which is known to be very creepy and had excellent makeup and excellent effects for its time. And your episode certainly raises the bar for Star Trek scary episodes. So kudos to you for that. Really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to see what is coming up for season 2. Live long and prosper.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. You kind of hit the head on the nail there. Like Wrath of Khan is, very much in the language of that scene, but also, it's one thing to say, okay, we want to do a meaningful Wrath of Khan death here, and then another thing to kind of pull it off. And so to really get there, I had to mine some personal stuff. Obviously, like I mentioned, when I watched the movie as a kid, I had this emotional reaction to it. And I felt as if I lost a member of my family, because I was like, oh my, Spock, and he's been in my home watching him on TV with my dad, and then that sort of started to unlock little keys for me. And so, a little bit of insight. My older brother is an engineer. He's actually an engineer, and I have a very great relationship with him, and he has taught me many things about myself in life. So when I was writing Hemmer, I was thinking about my brother quite a bit. In Memento Mori, even an engineer's best tools are his hands and his mind. The original line, I think, was an engineer's best tools are his hands. And I was like, no, my brother, his best tool is his mind. And so, like, little things like that, I was like always trying to infuse that. So then when it came to write that goodbye, that advice that Hemmer is giving is actually advice that my brother has given to me, as far as when I was a younger man, and sort of, my brother has an amazing family. He's a great father, and when I was sort of like figuring out, this before I met my own wife, and sort of, coming up as a young individual, trying to figure out what I want for my own life, and his advice, it's not word for word, but his advice was sort of always there for me. And so anyway, I channeled my brother in writing Hammer, and that's why I think I was able to get close to that Wrath of Khan, because I was writing from a personal place. I was writing from something that meant something to me. And so hopefully if it means something to me, it might mean something to all of you.
I'll be honest. So last night, as I was watching this episode again in preparation for tonight, that was the first time that the Wrath of Khan connection hit me. And it was like, oh, Spock actually lived through the thing he does at the end of Wrath of Khan now. He has seen what it can mean to sacrifice yourself for your shipmates. And I just started crying again.
We've had that conversation where it's like when he gets up out of the seat in Wrath of Khan and beelines it down for the thing, he knows that that's what there's no hesitation, because he from his own eyes has seen no hesitation from someone he admired. And there's that very poignant line from Spock where he says, a very logical, like you in that moment of I'm full of emotion, he's still processing in this lesson that he learned of, we didn't want to do the line, the needs of the many outweigh the needs, whatever, because that's the line that's very, specific to that movie. But we wanted the lesson here was the needs of this family, this crew, outweigh the needs of me and what you feel for me. I'm glad that it resonates with people. It means the same to others as it does to those of us who create it.
So you mentioned that you love horror, and we got to geek out with Akela a little bit about some of her favorite horror movies. What are some of Davy Perez's favorite horror films?
Castle Freak, oddly enough.
All right. I have that VHS floating around here somewhere.
Yeah. Stuart Gordon, From Beyond, Castle Freak. Those were like, I was always watching those. Obviously, John Carpenter's entire catalog of everything. I like the Event Horizon, especially as a sci-fi writer. Those kinds of I read Lovecraft for good and for bad, because he has problematic worldviews, but a lot of the things that he taps into, the esoteric fear of the unknown and the cosmic horror, those, anything Stephen King is obviously like bread and butter, but it's almost like my sister and I, we grew up watching Tales from the Dark Side and Monsters on TV, and we were like 8 or 9 watching these things, and just sort of soaking it in, and then by the time we were like in our teenage years, Stephen King watching those movies was kind of like watching regular TV. It wasn't horror to us. It was just like, oh, we're watching a normal movie, because it's I think that's why I like the really creepy, extreme kind of out there, weird Argento kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, you mentioned Stuart Gordon, and we did ask Akela this, but so when are we getting some Jeffrey Combs and Strange New Worlds? Davey?
I don't know, man.
Davey?
I love Jeffrey Combs if it were up to me, he'd be in everything, right?
That's fair.
Like Jeffrey Combs acting against Jeffrey Combs.
Please.
Just,
but if we get Jeffrey Combs, we got to get Barbara Crampton. That's
Yeah, no objection here.
For the listeners who can't see Davy's face, he gave nothing away. It's not obvious if any of these people will be in season 2. We tried. We're sorry.
I should clarify. I don't know what happens in season 2. I've not watched all of it.
Wait a minute.
I did not write any episodes.
But you were about to tell us about Bruce Horak's new character, so
yeah.
Go ahead.
So you did. I heard you mention that the way that you write scripts, and it sort of goes back to the genesis of your writing days, is sort of like a song. And I find that really interesting because Dr. Mbenga speaks of how our reflections are what imbue musical notes with emotion for the listener. So if the same is true for stories in an impossible sci-fi setting, do you find theme or character to be more important for conveying the desired notes?
I go with character. I think the characters reveal the theme. I think we have a theme that we're aiming for, and then as you tell that story, the emotionality is going to come from the character interactions. And then you'll find that your characters sometimes have changed the theme. In a really good script, something will happen that is often not intentional. It can be intentional, but it's best when it's not intentional. And it's a character will say something that is actually the theme of the episode. I find it to be great when it happens and you're like, oh shit, I found the theme. I didn't realize that was the theme because the character just said it, And in some episodes, there's more than one thing that a character says, and they become, like the A and the B theme.
Can I ask an extremely nerdy script writing question? When you're writing slug lines in space, do you put day or night?
We do, and then people always say, "But how was it?" Like this conversation comes up more than I care to admit, because if you're near a planet and you can see the sun, I think sometimes we put day or night because we want to convey like the mood. But then we're like, but on the ship, it doesn't matter if it's day or night because their sun is there and it's always thing. But then I think we got to a place where like our prime crew is the day shift.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're on, it's day. If it's skeleton crew or if it's like, not main person in the seat, it might be night. Honestly, like I wish there was an easy answer.
The lights are down.
Literally, this conversation I have every episode I have during prep, where they're like, "You slug this as night, but it's not." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry." And then because, or if there's a story happening on the planet, and like the planet's cycle is a 12-hour day, and then it's a whole So the answer is it depends on the episode and what and where in space you are.
Fair.
Is there ever a moment in the writer's room where somebody's just like, "Oh my God, you're all such nerds"? Like,
pretty often.
That's a day.
But it's more like, "Oh my God, we're all such nerds."
Let's play D&D, you guys.
Yeah, you guys.
Well, Cam got to ask his question. I'm going to go back to how you got to define the life cycles of a Gorn. We got to see in the pilot, a young new civilization working on reaching the stars by the end of that episode. And after Memento Mori and we had started discussing this, I've had the image in my head of Gorn in like science aprons holding up paper cutouts of creepy Gorn ships. Like when do they learn how to build ships? Like what point in their life?
Like an individual Gorn, like when do they mature into being able to like work in a factory?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think after the youngling phase, when they've proven that they're the alpha of their batch, there's still a lot of developmental time. So they actually stay as a youngling for longer than they stay as a hatchling. And they, if you think about the planet that Laud was on, she was being hunted day and night. She was being hunted by these younglings. So these were already the ones that were the alphas of their batch. They're now kind of they're creating little like Gorn gangs, if you will, or Gorn packs, hunting their prey. So there's a lot of proving your mettle, I think, which what we would call high school or maybe even college. And so we haven't defined how long that cycle is, but it's not. The growth from hatchling to youngling is fast. The growth from youngling to adult is not as quick. It takes longer. And then once in our heads, and we don't know if this is going to be official canon or eventually as seen on screen, but in our heads, like once that breeding planet has sort of cycled into a good amount of younglings that are going to reach adulthood, a ship will come and be like, "Okay, guys, like get on board, get your leather tunics and here's your here's your wrenches for the assembly line." But at that point it's like they're communicating with each other more, they're cooperating more, they're not in a ravenous primal phase the Gorn hegemony can say like, all right, now you're useful because you're not just gonna ravage everything that you're around.
Yeah, because they've developed language by that point. They're communicating by light and everything like that. So
yeah, like the adult Gorns have fully functioning society. They have fully functioning, and it goes to sort of the conversation of we are so human centric in our ideas of development that how can we imagine what a completely foreign alien might develop, like what their stages might be. And just because somebody develops space travel doesn't mean that they don't also have a primal side to them.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like Gorn puberty lasts forever. Like that just is awful.
And deadly as fuck,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And
yeah,
so,
I mean like regular, that's just regular puberty, but yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, right. So they don't get to vote until they're done eating other people.
I think that's a fair rule. We
Same
should apply
rule
to
that we have.
everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Davey, since the episode aired, I've been on the edge of my seat, so maybe you can finally put this to rest. How did the delivery of Vidium cells go? Did the Enterprise get them there on time?
Well, we know the K7 exists because it's the starbase that the Trouble with Tribbles takes place
Okay.
on.
Okay.
Phew.
So the Vidium cells were delivered without a hitch.
Nice.
Yes,
Yeah.
they were.
You've written many, many words in your career. Do you have a favorite line you've written, whether it's been produced or not?
Absolutely. There's a line that I get into everything that I've done except my first job, which I still lament. But I was scripted and then it was taken out, and I still wish I would have snuck it back in. It's in an episode of Strange New Worlds, and it's in an episode of Supernatural. It is the line "extra cheese,"
Oh.
and it is the reason for this is because when I was dating Amanda, my wife, and we were just getting to know each other, there's a place called Larchmont Wine and Cheese in LA that we absolutely love, and I one day drove like over the hill out of my way in traffic in the rain to get these sandwiches, and like an hour and a half later, surviving the LA traffic showed up and was like, hey, I got us Larchmont Wine and Cheese sandwiches, how great. And she took hers and she goes, oh, next time extra cheese. And I was like, no, thank you. No,
we're getting divorced.
Davey.
Yeah. And we've only been dating a couple weeks here. But I love that. I give her shit for it immediately and still to this day. But it was like this, like, kind of moment where you found yourself comfortable with each other, right? Like to instead of being all like, thank you, I'm gonna eat the sandwich, blah, blah, blah. It was the moment in the relationship where you're like, nah, man, extra cheese, So I love that as a way to both honor and poke fun at my wife and the love that she's given me, and so I put that in everything that I do. I don't know if I could sneak it in again because it's a hard line to get in, but I got it. I did get it in all those who wanted.
Yeah,
excellent.
Mbenga, I believe. So wow, that's really crazy though.
It's Lon, I think. No,
I think she says something and then he pushes her a bowl and might say extra cheese.
He pushes her a bowl, but then it's Rebecca who says extra cheese.
I'm not going to argue with you.
I was like, no, but I was like, it's not. But I was wrong that it was Christy. It was Una, right? Yeah, it was in that little beat. You were right. You were in the right.
So
right,
cool.
Right
So you've worked on a couple of anthology shows, and I'm curious if Strange New Worlds were an anthology show, like what Trek story overall, what would you want to explore if you could choose, for a season?
I always loved The Conscience of the King, and it was the butcher of I'm forgetting the planet, but it was the idea that this colony governor went mad and like killed a bunch of colonists, and I always thought that was an interesting thing to. It unfortunately doesn't line up with where we are in the star dates. I think it's just like we miss being able to touch on that. But I just think it's a fascinating story, sort of this colony out there in the wilderness that is no oversight, and there's this sort of Apocalypse Now governor who goes crazy and starts, taking out his own colonists. I think that would be an interesting sort of anthology-esque, that's a limited series, right? That's a mini, like what happened at that colony, right? And we know he escapes persecution because he ends up playing, Macbeth on that stage on the Enterprise.
Yeah,
I think it's Macbeth.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Davey, we've tried to get some clues about season 2 out of you, so here's our last effort. Can you give us, and most of the other people have, one single word, one word that out of context will mean nothing to us, but when we watch season 2, we'll be able to go,
Totem.
Totem, I like it. That's a good one. We'll go up on our board.
Tie the red string around the pin and go on to the next. Yeah. Now, Open Pike Night is an open mic night themed podcast, loosely, and we do ask all of our guests to tell us their favorite joke. So, Davey Perez, do you have a favorite joke for us?
Not necessarily a joke. There's a setup and a bit of a punchline, and it revolves around a comedian trying to do his job. So it's sort of relevant. A little backstory. So when I was a kid, I got Tony Danza and Ted Danson confused all the time. And my cousins would rib me all the time. And they'd always say, Davey, who's the boss? And I'd be like, Ted Danson. And they'd be like, you're a big idiot. It's totally not Ted Danson. And so plagued me, obviously has marked my psyche in some way. So fast forward, I'm probably 21, 22. I'm on a date trying to impress whoever I'm with. And we're at a venue, and there's a comedian on stage, and he's telling a joke, and his punchline is, well, guess who's the boss now? And I yell, Tony Danza. Totally, out of nowhere, completely, I panicked and yelled, Tony Danza.
You got it right, at least.
Got a huge laugh. And the guy was like, well, Mike said so. Totally heckled this. I feel so bad. Totally heckled the guy off stage with a one-liner.
That's good.
That's fantastic.
I thought you guys would appreciate that.
No, man, I swear, it's just PTSD. I wasn't trying to be
it's just
a jerk.
PTSD.
Yeah.
I have childhood trauma.
This is a win for me.
I have who's the boss trauma. Yeah. I was like, I got to answer. And I was like, I knew the answer. I panicked. Tony Danza.
Man. Thank you so much again, Davey, seriously, for your time.
Of course, man.
For your,
this was awesome.
your episodes.
I love doing it.
Yeah. I mean, we would love to have you back. We have some contact information for you. Trust us, you'll be hearing from us again.
Yeah, great. Reach out. I love being here and answering questions, and invite me back. I'd love to do it.
Twisted our arm. All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Cool, man. Live long and prosper.
That's right.
Live long
Good luck
and prosper.
with the magic and D&D and finding time for everything.
I will roll only 20s. I promise.
Right. Excellent.
All right, have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Have a good one.
But
we've been speaking tonight with Davey Perez, who brought the Gorn from the past to further in the past to the present to terrify us on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, in Memento Mori, and All Those Who Wander. Davey, thanks for speaking with us tonight.
He also taught us that when you get to the point in your relationship where your spouse is willing to give notes on the sandwich order, you can take those notes and turn them into the longest running on-screen joke you have ever heard of. How great was that?
As always, we want to keep every episode of Open Pike Night free to everyone. And to make that possible, please head over to patreon.com/openpike or openpike.com and check out our support page. Our supporters there have already had a chance to see a little greeting video from tonight's recording session with Davey and a little breakdown of the episode after this has dropped.
And maybe a little Easter egg, or should we say Gorn egg?
Oh, yeah. There is some fantastic video of, you'll just have to subscribe to Patreon. Take a look. It's one of the many benefits you two can have when you become a patron for as little as $2 a month. Jesse, how else can our listeners help?
Of course, we need your help to make every episode of Open Pike Night as great as it is. We need your questions asked, and the best way for you to submit those questions is to go to openpike.com/join us. There, you can record your voicemail or leave us a message, and during the month of November, when you do that, you'll be entered into our hashtag Where November Has Gone Before sweepstakes. Before I finish this read, John, will this episode air in November?
I think you got like 2 more days after.
Yeah, you have just a couple days left to enter this contest.
While you're there, you can leave a voicemail or a message and be entered into our hashtag Where November Has Gone Before contest to win a Hallmark keepsake Strange New Worlds Enterprise Light Up Ornament. And you can probably still follow the show on Twitter at OpenPike. I don't want to make that call, but you probably can do that, so give it a shot.
And Cam, where can people find more of you?
Yeah, if you want to find more of me, you can listen to mine and John's other podcast, Green Shirt, A Newbie's Trek Through the Next Generation, where I am the titular Green Shirt. Apparently, I've got something about 4 lights to look forward to and a spooky Gates McFadden episode, and there was something else, I think, maybe a crazy Riker. I don't know. Apparently, the last 2 seasons of TNG have a lot in store for me, so I'm looking forward to it. Come join us there. It's a good time. Also, Twitter, at GreenShirt87 is where you can find us. If the Twitter boat sinks, I don't know where we're going. We're on Facebook. You can find us there too.
And Jesse, where can folks find more of you?
To that note, if the Twitter boat does in fact sink, you can find this show at OpenPike, same handle on Instagram, or again, just openpike.com. Everything will be there all the time. If for whatever reason you need more of me in your life, you can stay in the podcasting app that you are currently in and go look up Sudden But Inevitable, which is the show where I turn longtime friends into brand new fans of the shows I feel they probably should have seen by now. We started with Firefly, we jumped to Cowboy Bebop. There's all kinds of movies in there, Highlander, Donnie Darko. If you like hearing people experience things for the first time and other people forcing them to like those things, then Sudden But Inevitable is for you.
And I can be found on Twitter at John T. Bolds, if Twitter's still around. If not, that's it. I'm actually an AI generated by Twitter, and everybody who ran me has been fired. It's been a long night, and the Open Pike Night crew has to figure out some technical difficulties. There are some blinking lights going on, and I'm hearing a clicking noise. I'm not sure what's going on, you guys, but we should probably go wander around the hallways and back and check it out.
I'll go up into the Jeffries tube and check that that ventilation.
I actually just got promoted. Do you guys want me to lead this little excursion?
Yeah. That sounds good. I haven't seen you before, but I'm sure we'll all be fine.
I've got a great backstory.
Excellent. I'm going to head to sick bay and make sure everything's okay there. Be sure to clean up after yourselves on the way out. Don't forget to tip your servers. You can go anywhere you want, but you can't stay here.